Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his face as he walked through the smoking ruins of what used to be a raider camp. The smell of burned metal and alien fuel filled the air around him. His soldiers moved carefully between the destroyed ships, checking for any survivors who might still be dangerous. The fight had been hard, but they won again. This was the third raider attack on Zephyria Prime in 2 months. Each time the pirates came with bigger ships and better weapons. Each time Jake and his 200 human soldiers pushed them back. The crystalline people of this world were grateful, but their princess was different. Jake looked at his watch. Princess Lyra had called for him to come to the palace in 1 hour. She wanted to talk about the battle. Jake hoped she would finally say thank you for all the work his people had done. For 8 years he had protected alien worlds. Most leaders were kind to him and his soldiers. Princess Lyra was not like most leaders. Sergeant Tony Rodriguez walked up to Jake with his helmet under his arm. His face was dirty and tired, but he was smiling. "Captain, we got them all. No human casualties this time." "Martinez has a burn on his arm, but nothing serious." Jake nodded. "Good work, Tony. Get the men cleaned up and back to base. I have to go see the princess." Tony made a face. "You sure you want to go alone, sir?" That princess does not like humans very much. Jake had noticed this too. Every time he met with Princess Lyra, she looked at him like he was something dirty. She never thanked his soldiers for their work. She acted like humans were beneath her. But Jake was a professional soldier. His job was to protect this world, whether the princess liked him or not. "I can handle 1 alien Princess Tony. Keep the men ready. I have a feeling this conversation will not go well." Jake walked to his transport ship and flew toward the Crystal Palace. Zephyria Prime was a beautiful world. The cities were made from living crystal that grew like trees. The buildings sparkled in the sunlight like giant diamonds. Zephyrian. People looked like humans, but their skin had a crystal-like shine to it. They were peaceful and smart, but not very good at fighting. The palace was the most beautiful building Jake had ever seen. It was made from pure white crystal and stood 1,000 feet tall. Light danced through its walls, creating rainbow patterns everywhere. Jake had been here many times, but it still took his breath away. Guards met him at the entrance. They were Zephyrian soldiers in fancy uniforms that looked more like parade costumes than real armor. Their weapons were beautiful, but Jake doubted they would work well in a real fight. These guards had never seen real combat like his human soldiers had. "Captain Morrison," one guard said in perfect English, "Princess Lyra waits for you in the throne room." Jake followed the guards through long hallways filled with art and statues. Other Zephyrians stopped to watch him walk by. Some looked grateful, others seemed afraid of him. Jake understood why. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy as fierce warriors. Most aliens thought humans were too violent and dangerous. The throne room was huge. The ceiling was 100 feet high and made entirely of crystal. Light came through it in amazing patterns. Hundreds of Zephyrian nobles stood around the room in their finest clothes. At the far end sat Princess Lyra on a throne made from a single piece of clear crystal. Princess Lyra was beautiful even by human standards. Her skin had a soft blue glow and her hair looked like spun silver. Her eyes were deep purple and seemed to glow with their own light. She wore a dress that sparkled like starlight. But her face was cold as she looked at Jake. Jake walked across the room. His combat boots made loud sounds on the crystal floor. He could feel everyone watching him. When he reached the throne, he stopped and gave a small bow. It was respectful, but not too deep. Jake was a soldier, not a servant. "Your Highness," Jake said, "you asked to see me." Princess Lyra stood up slowly. She looked down at Jake with disgust in her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. "Captain Morrison, once again your humans have fought on my world. Once again you have brought violence and destruction to our peaceful planet." Jake felt confused. "Your Highness, we destroyed the raiders who were attacking your cities. We saved thousands of your people." The princess laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Saved us? You think you saved us? Look at how you fight, Captain. You and your soldiers act like wild animals. You have no honor, no grace, no understanding. of civilized warfare. You are brutal and savage in everything you do. Jake felt his anger rising but kept his voice calm. Your Highness, we fight to win. The raiders we killed today would have enslaved your people if we had not stopped them. Princess Lyra stepped closer to him. Her purple eyes burned with anger. You humans disgust me, Captain Morrison. Your kind are nothing more than violent animals pretending to be soldiers. You bring shame to this palace just by standing here. The throne room became completely silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. His soldiers who had come with him looked ready to draw their weapons. But Jake just stared at the princess for a long moment. Then he began to remove his armor. Jake unbuckled his chestplate and set it carefully on the floor. He took off his weapon belt and placed it next to the armor. His plasma rifle went against the wall. His helmet went on a nearby table. Piece by piece he removed everything that marked him as a soldier of the Galactic Defense Coalition. Your Highness, Jake said quietly, if that is how you feel about our protection, then you will not be needing it anymore. He turned and walked toward the door. His soldiers followed him in shocked silence. Princess Lyra called out behind him, but Jake did not turn around. He had given 8 years of his life protecting ungrateful aliens. He was done with this assignment. Outside the palace, Jake looked up at the crystal spires one last time. Tomorrow he would take his soldiers and leave this world forever. Princess Lyra could protect herself from now on. Admiral Lisa Carter sat in her office on the space station orbiting New Texas when the emergency message came through. The hologram of Princess Lyra appeared above her desk, looking worried and angry at the same time. Lisa had been expecting this call ever since Jake Morrison and his soldiers left the Sophia Prime 12 hours ago. Admiral Carter, Princess Lyra said. Her voice tried to sound commanding, but Lisa could hear the fear underneath. I demand that you send Captain Morrison and his forces back to my world immediately. Lisa leaned back in her chair and studied the alien princess. She had read Jake's report about what happened in the throne room. Every word of it made her angry. Jake Morrison was one of her best officers. He had saved more alien lives than any other human in the galaxy. Your Highness, Lisa said calmly. Captain Morrison was following your direct orders. You told him that human protection disgusted you. He respected your wishes and left. Princess Lyra's crystal skin turned a darker blue. That was not an order, Admiral. I was merely expressing my frustration with human methods. Surely your captain understood this. Lisa smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Princess, humans take words seriously. When someone tells us we disgust them and calls us animals, we believe they mean it. Captain Morrison took you at your word. This is ridiculous, Princess Lyra said. Her voice was getting higher. Human forces have protected my world for 5 years. You cannot just abandon us because of a few angry words. Lisa stood up and walked to the window of her office. Outside she could see the human fleet. Dozens of warships floated in space around the station. Each one was filled with soldiers ready to fight and die to protect innocent people. But they would not fight for people who hated them. Your Highness, Lisa said without turning around. My soldiers are not slaves. They are volunteers who risk their lives because they believe in protecting others. When those others call them animals and say they are disgusted by them, my soldiers have every right to leave. Princess Lyra was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Admiral, my people need human protection. The raiders will come back. Our own forces are not strong enough to stop them. Lisa turned back to face the hologram. Then perhaps your people should have thought about that before insulting the soldiers who were protecting them. Captain Morrison and his men have been reassigned to defend colonies that actually appreciate their sacrifice. The connection ended and Princess Lyra's image disappeared. Lisa sat back down and opened Jake's file on her computer. In 8 years of service, he had never failed a mission. He had saved 17 different worlds from pirates, raiders, and invasion fleets. He had been wounded in combat 6 times and decorated for bravery 12 times. And Princess Lyra had called him an animal. Lisa pressed a button on her desk. Get me Captain Morrison. Jake's face appeared on her screen a few minutes later. He was on the transport ship heading back to New Texas with his soldiers. He looked tired and older than his 32 years. "Admiral," Jake said, "I assume you heard from the princess." "I did, Jake. She wants you back immediately." Jake shook his head. "With respect, Admiral, I will not serve under someone who thinks humans are disgusting animals." "My soldiers deserve better than that," Lisa nodded. "I agree completely. You and your men are hereby reassigned to defend the colony worlds in the Outer Rim. The settlers there have been asking for protection from raider attacks." "Thank you, Admiral. My men will be happy to serve people who actually want our help." After the call ended, Lisa looked out at the stars. She wondered how long it would take for Princess Lyra to realize her mistake. The Zephyrians had grown soft. Over the past 5 years, their military was more concerned with parades and ceremonies than actual fighting. Without human protection, they would be helpless against real raiders on Zephyria Prime. Princess Lyra stood in her empty throne room. The nobles had all gone home after the humans left. The palace felt different now, colder somehow. She walked to the window and looked out at her capital city. General Keth, the head of her military forces, entered the room. He was an old Zephyrian, with silver skin and tired eyes. He had fought in real wars before the humans came to protect them. "Your Highness," General Keth said, "our long-range sensors have detected something troubling. A large fleet of unknown ships has entered the outer system. They appear to be moving toward our world." Princess Lyra felt ice in her stomach. "How large a fleet, General?" "At least 50 ships, Your Highness. Much larger than the raider groups we have faced before." Princess Lyra turned away from the window. "Can our forces stop them?" General Keth was quiet for a long moment. "Your Highness, our ceremonial guard numbers only 5,000 soldiers. Most have never seen real combat. Our ships are fast but lightly armed. Against 50 warships." He did not finish the sentence. Princess Lyra understood. Without the humans, her world was defenseless. She had spent 5 years watching Jake Morrison and his soldiers fight for her people. She had seen their weapons and tactics. She knew how deadly humans could be in battle. She had also grown to hate how violent they seemed, but now she realized something important. The humans were violent because the galaxy was a violent place. Her world had been safe for 5 years, not because it was peaceful, but because human soldiers stood ready to fight for it. And she had thrown that protection away because she did not like how they fought. "General," she said quietly, "send a message to Admiral Carter. Tell her we need human assistance immediately." General Keth bowed and left the room. Princess Lyra walked back to her throne and sat down. The crystal felt cold against her skin. She had made a terrible mistake, and now her people would pay for it. An hour later, General Keth returned with Admiral Carter's response. Princess Lyra read it 3 times before she believed what it said. "Your Highness expressed disgust with human protection methods. We respect your decision to defend your world using your own civilized forces. Captain Morrison and his soldiers wish you success in your endeavors." Princess Lyra crumpled the message in her hands. The unknown fleet was getting closer, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She had insulted the one man who could save her world, and now he was gone forever. Captain Rex Bloodhammer stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled as he watched Zephyria Prime grow larger on the screen. For 3 years he had waited for this moment. The human soldiers were finally gone, and the crystal world was defenseless. His Crimson Horde fleet of 50 warships would make him rich beyond his dreams. Rex was a Vorthak, a species known throughout the galaxy for their cruelty and love of violence. His red skin was covered in scars from 100 battles. His crew of pirates and mercenaries came from dozens of different worlds, but they all shared one thing. They were killers who would do anything for money. "Commander Vex," Rex called to his second-in-command. "Have our spies confirmed that the humans are really gone?" Commander Vex was a thin alien with 4 arms and yellow eyes. He had been watching Zephyria Prime for weeks through hidden sensors. "Yes, Captain. The human garrison left 2 days ago. Our contacts on the planet confirmed that only Zephyrian forces remain." Rex laughed, and the sound was like grinding metal. Perfect. After 3 years of hiding in the outer systems, we can finally take what we want. Those crystal-skinned fools have no idea what is coming. The Crimson Horde had tried to attack Zephyria Prime many times over the past 5 years. Each time the human soldiers had driven them away. Jake Morrison and his men had destroyed dozens of Rex's ships and killed hundreds of his crew. Rex hated humans more than any other species in the galaxy, but Rex was also smart enough to know when he was outmatched. Human soldiers were the best fighters in the galaxy. Their weapons were deadly and their tactics were perfect. Rex had learned to wait and watch until the humans left. Now his patience was finally paying off on Zephyria Prime. Princess Lyra stood in her war room staring at the tactical displays. The enemy fleet was only 6 hours away from reaching her world. General Keth and his officers looked terrified as they studied the incoming ships. "Your Highness," General Keth said, "I have reviewed our defensive capabilities. Our orbital defense platforms are designed to stop small raider groups, not a fleet this size. Our warships are fast scouts, not heavy fighters. We simply do not have the firepower to stop 50 enemy ships." Princess Lyra felt sick as she looked at the numbers. The Crimson Horde had enough firepower to destroy her entire fleet in minutes. Her ground forces were even worse. Most of her soldiers had never fired a shot in anger. They were good at marching in parades, but not at real fighting. "What about civilian evacuation?" Princess Lyra asked. "Impossible, Your Highness. We do not have enough transport ships to move even 10% of our population. Most of our people will have to stay and hope the raiders do not harm civilians." Princess Lyra knew that hope was foolish. The Crimson Horde was famous for enslaving entire populations. The crystal-skinned Zephyrians would be valuable as slaves in the mining colonies of the Outer Rim. Her people faced a future of slavery and death. "General, send another message to Admiral Carter. Offer her anything she wants if she will send help." General Keth looked uncomfortable. "Your Highness, we have sent 12 messages in the past day. The humans have not responded to any of them." "Princess." Lyra walked to the window and looked out at her beautiful capital city. Millions of innocent people lived in those crystal towers. Children played in the parks between the buildings. Families lived peaceful lives because they thought they were safe. Soon the Crimson Horde would turn their world into a nightmare. She thought about Jake Morrison and his human soldiers. For 5 years they had stood between her people and the darkness of space. They had asked for nothing except basic respect. And she had called them animals and thrown them away like garbage on New Texas. Jake Morrison sat in a bar with his soldiers and watched the news reports about Zephyria Prime. The entire galaxy knew that the Crimson Horde was approaching the Crystal World. Every news channel was talking about the coming invasion. Sergeant Tony Rodriguez sat next to Jake and shook his head. "Captain, this is wrong. Those people are going to die because of one spoiled princess." Jake drank his beer and tried not to think about the Zephyrian children he had seen playing in the palace gardens. "Tony, we are soldiers, we follow orders. Our orders are to protect the colonies in this system, not Zephyria Prime." Private Danny Walsh, the youngest member of Jake's unit, spoke up from across the table. "But sir, we know that planet better than anyone. We could stop the Crimson Horde if we went back." Jake looked around at his soldiers. These men had followed him through hell for 8 years. They trusted him to make the right decisions. But what was the right decision now? Should he let innocent people die because their leader was a fool? Or should he disobey orders and risk his career to save them? "Sir," Tony said quietly. "I know what the princess said hurt. But those civilians never called us animals. They always waved when we patrolled their streets. The kids used to ask us to show them our weapons." Jake remembered. Those children. Little Zephyrian boys and girls with crystal skin that sparkled in the sunlight. They thought human soldiers were heroes. They would never understand why their heroes had abandoned them. "Captain," Danny said, "my sister lives on a colony world. If raiders attacked her planet and the defenders left because someone insulted them, I would want other soldiers to help her. Even if they were not supposed to." Jake finished his beer and stood up. His soldiers watched him carefully. They knew he was making a decision that would change everything. "Listen up," Jake said. "In 4 hours, the Crimson Horde will reach Zephyria Prime. Those pirates will enslave or kill every person on that planet. Princess Lyra is a spoiled fool, but her people do not deserve to die for her mistakes." The soldiers waited for him to continue. "I am not ordering anyone to come with me, but I'm going back to stop Rex Bloodhammer and his fleet. Anyone who wants to join me can. Anyone who wants to stay here and follow orders can do that too. No one will think less of you either way." Every soldier in the bar stood up at the same time. "Sir," Tony said with a grin, "where you go, we go. That is what humans do. We protect people even when they do not deserve it." Jake smiled for the first time in days. His soldiers were the best people he had ever known. They were about to risk everything to save people who had insulted them. That was what made humans special in the galaxy. They fought not for glory or thanks, but because fighting for others was the right thing to do. The first Crimson Horde ships entered orbit around Zephyria Prime just as the sun began to rise over the Crystal Capital. Captain Rex Bloodhammer watched with satisfaction as his fleet destroyed the planet's orbital defense platforms in minutes. The Zephyrian defenders fought bravely, but their weapons were no match for military-grade pirate ships. Princess Lyra stood in the palace command center watching her world fall apart on the tactical screens. General Keth reported the losses with a voice that grew quieter with each update. "Your Highness, orbital stations 3 through 7 have been destroyed. Our defense fleet is retreating to the far side of the planet. The enemy is beginning their landing assault." Through the crystal windows of the command center, Princess Lyra could see dark shapes falling from the sky. Hundreds of landing ships, filled with pirates and mercenaries, were descending on her capital city. In the distance, she could hear the sound of explosions as the invaders began their attack. "How long before they reach the palace?" Princess Lyra asked. General Keth checked his displays. "At their current pace, perhaps 6 hours, Your Highness. Our city guard is fighting, but they are not trained for this kind of warfare." Princess Lyra thought about Jake Morrison and his soldiers. If they were here, the battle would be very different. Human troops knew how to fight urban warfare. They would have turned every street into a battleground and made the pirates pay for every building. But the humans were gone, and her people were dying. Captain Rex Bloodhammer led the first wave of ground troops personally. He wanted to see the fear in Zephyrian eyes when they realized their crystal paradise was falling. His red armor was decorated with the skulls of his enemies. His plasma cannon had killed more people than he could count. The Zephyrian city guard tried to stop the pirates at the outer districts, but they broke and ran after the first real fight. These alien soldiers had never faced an enemy that wanted to kill them. They were used to the clean warfare that humans practiced, where prisoners were taken and civilians were protected. The Crimson Horde followed no such rules. Rex's forces swept through the residential areas like a plague. They killed anyone who resisted and captured everyone else. Zephyrian families were dragged from their crystal homes and loaded into slave transports. Children cried for parents who would never see them again. "Commander Vex," Rex called over his radio, "how many slaves have we captured so far?" "Nearly 10,000, Captain," came the reply. "The crystal-skinned ones will bring excellent prices in the mining colonies. Their natural ability to sense mineral deposits makes them very valuable." Rex smiled as he watched a group of Zephyrian civilians being forced into a transport ship. This was turning out to be the most profitable raid of his career. He had always known that Zephyria Prime would make him rich. All he had to do was wait for the humans to leave in the palace. Princess Lyra tried desperately to contact any human forces in the area. She sent messages to Admiral Carter, to regional fleet commanders, even to merchant ships that might have human crews. Every message went unanswered. The galaxy was watching her world die, and no one was coming to help. "Your Highness," General Keth said urgently, "the enemy has broken through our inner defenses. They will reach the palace within the hour. I recommend we evacuate you to the emergency bunkers." Princess Lyra looked around the command center at her remaining officers. These brave Zephyrians had stayed at their posts even though they knew they were going to die. They deserved a leader who would face the end with them. No, General, I will not hide while my people suffer. If this is where our story ends, then I will meet it here. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison and his soldiers were racing through hyperspace in a borrowed assault ship. They had left New Texas 3 hours ago without permission from their commanders. Admiral Carter would probably court-martial them all when this was over, but that did not matter now. "Captain," Tony Rodriguez called from the pilot's seat, "we are coming out of hyperspace in 30 seconds. Long-range sensors show the Crimson Horde fleet in orbit around Zephyria Prime." Jake looked at his tactical display. 50 enemy ships against his single assault craft and 200 soldiers. The odds were impossible, but Jake had faced impossible odds before. The trick was not to fight all 50 ships at once. "Listen up," Jake announced to his troops over the intercom. "We are not here to save Princess Leia. We are here to save the innocent people of this world. The enemy thinks they have already won. That gives us an advantage." The assault ship dropped out of hyperspace behind Zephyria Prime's largest moon. From there they could see the full extent of the invasion. Hundreds of landing craft were moving between the Crimson Horde fleet and the planet's surface. Smoke was rising from the capital city where the fighting was heaviest. "Tony, take us in low and fast. Use the planetary rings for cover. Get us to the surface without being detected." The assault ship dove toward the planet, weaving between chunks of ice and rock that made up Zephyria Prime's ring system. The ship's stealth systems kept them hidden from enemy sensors, but Jake knew their luck would not last long. They landed in a forest 20 miles from the capital city. Jake's soldiers moved quickly to unload their equipment and supplies. They had brought enough weapons and ammunition for a week of fighting. It would have to be enough. "Sergeant Rodriguez, take 50 men and hit the enemy supply depot on the north side of the city. Sergeant Miller, you take another 50 and destroy their communication center. The rest of you are with me. We are going to rescue as many civilians as we can." Jake's plan was simple but dangerous. Instead of fighting the main enemy force directly, they would strike at targets that would hurt the pirates' ability to control the planet. Without supplies and communications, the Crimson Horde would be fighting blind dot as his soldiers moved out into the night. Jake thought about Princess Lyra. She had called him an animal and said his kind disgusted her. She had thrown away 5 years of protection because she did not like how humans fought wars, but Jake was not here for her. He was here for the children who used to wave at him during his patrols. He was here for the families who had always treated his soldiers with kindness. The first explosion lit up the northern horizon as Sergeant Rodriguez's team hit the supply depot. A few minutes later, the communication center went up in flames. All across the capital city, Jake's soldiers began their campaign to make the Crimson Horde pay for every minute. They stayed on Zephyria Prime in the palace. Princess Leia heard the explosions and felt something she had not felt in days. Hope. Someone was fighting back and doing it with the skill and precision that only human soldiers possessed. Captain Rex Bloodhammer cursed as reports of sabotage came in from all over the city. His supply depot was destroyed, his communications were down. Small groups of attackers were hitting his forces and disappearing before he could respond. Rex knew immediately who was responsible. "The humans are back," he growled to his officers. "Jake Morrison and his cursed soldiers have returned." Rex had fought humans before, and he knew how dangerous they could be. But he had 50 ships and thousands of troops. Morrison had at most a few hundred soldiers. Rex would crush them like insects and then finish enslaving this planet. The crystal world would still be his, even if he had to kill every human on it first. Jake Morrison crouched behind a broken crystal wall and watched the Crimson Horde patrol walk past his hiding spot. 3 days of guerrilla warfare had turned the beautiful capital city into a battlefield. Smoke rose from dozens of buildings, and the streets were filled with debris from the fighting. His plan was working better than he had hoped. By hitting the pirates' supply lines and communication networks, His small force had thrown the entire invasion into chaos. Captain Rex Bloodhammer's troops were fighting shadows, never knowing where the next attack would come from. "Captain," Sergeant Tony Rodriguez whispered over the radio, "we have freed another group of civilians from the detention center on 5th Street. About 200 people, including 50 children," Jake smiled grimly. In 3 days, his soldiers had rescued over 3,000 Zephyrian civilians from slave transports and holding centers. Each rescue operation hurt the pirates where it mattered most in their profits. Rex Bloodhammer was learning that enslaving people was much harder when someone was fighting back. "Good work, Tony. Get those people to the evacuation point and prepare for the next phase." Jake's ultimate goal was not just to harass the Crimson Horde, but to drive them off the planet completely. To do that, he needed to strike at their leadership. Intelligence reports indicated that Rex Bloodhammer had set up his headquarters in the old government building near the palace. If Jake could capture or kill Rex, the rest of the pirates might retreat. Princess Lyra huddled in the palace command center with the last of her loyal guards. The building shook as explosions echoed through the city. For 3 days she had watched human soldiers fight to save her world while her own forces collapsed around her. The contrast was humbling and painful. "Your Highness," General Keth said quietly, "Captain Morrison has sent a message. He says the palace will be secure within 6 hours and requests that you prepare for evacuation if needed." Princess Lyra looked at the message on her screen. After everything she had said to Jake Morrison, he was still trying to protect her. She had called him an animal and thrown away his friendship. Now he was risking his life to save her people and asking nothing in return. "General, send a message back to Captain Morrison. Tell him I want to speak with him when this is over." "Captain." Rex Bloodhammer stood in his headquarters and studied the tactical displays with growing anger. His invasion force of 5,000 troops had been reduced to less than 3,000. His supply lines were cut. His communications were unreliable. Small groups of human soldiers were picking apart his army piece by piece. "Commander Vex," Rex snarled, "how many slaves have we lost to these human attacks?" Commander Vex looked nervous as he checked his reports. "Nearly 8,000, Captain. The humans keep hitting our detention centers and transport ships. They seem to know exactly where we are holding prisoners." Rex slammed his fist on the table. "This is impossible. Morrison has maybe 200 soldiers. How can so few humans cause so much damage?" The answer was training and experience. Jake Morrison's soldiers were veterans who had fought in dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. They knew how to use the terrain, how to strike fast and disappear, how to make a small force seem much larger than it was. The Crimson Horde troops were used to fighting defenseless civilians, not professional soldiers. "Captain," Commander Vex said carefully, "perhaps we should consider withdrawing. This planet is costing us more than we can gain." Rex's red skin turned even darker with rage. "No, I will not be driven off by a handful of humans. Double the patrols. Execute 10 civilians for every attack on our forces. Morrison will surrender when he sees what his actions cost." But Rex's brutal tactics only made the situation worse. Every civilian execution turned more Zephyrians against the pirates. Local residents began helping the human soldiers, providing information about enemy movements and safe houses for rescued prisoners. Jake received word of the executions while planning his assault on the government building. The news filled him with cold fury. Rex Bloodhammer was about to learn why humans had such a fearsome reputation in the galaxy. "Listen up," Jake told his assembled soldiers. "The enemy commander is murdering civilians to try to force us to surrender. That is not going to happen. Tonight we end this war." Jake's plan was simple and direct. While most of his soldiers created diversions around the city, he would lead a small team directly into Rex's headquarters. The building was heavily defended, but Jake had studied its layout for 3 days. He knew exactly how to get inside. As darkness fell over the capital, explosions began echoing from all directions. Sergeant Rodriguez led attacks on the spaceport while Sergeant Miller hit the fuel depot. Other teams struck at patrol bases and vehicle parks. The entire Crimson Horde force was drawn into firefights across the city. Jake and 12 handpicked soldiers moved through the shadows toward the government building. They had blackened their faces and wore dark clothing to blend with the night. Each man carried enough firepower to level a city block. The building was surrounded by guards, but most of them were watching for attacks from the obvious approaches. Jake's team came from the sewers beneath the structure, emerging inside the building's basement. From there they moved like ghosts through the halls. Rex Bloodhammer was in his command center on the 5th floor when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, but by then Jake's soldiers were already inside the room. The pirate captain reached for his weapon but found himself staring down the barrel of Jake's plasma rifle. "Hello, Rex," Jake said calmly. "Remember me?" Rex's yellow eyes burned with hatred. "Morrison. I should have killed you years ago when I had the chance." Jake smiled without humor. "You tried, several times in fact. But here we are." Around the room, Jake's soldiers had captured or killed Rex's officers. Commander Vex lay dead by the tactical display. The heart of the Crimson Horde invasion had been cut out in less than 5 minutes. "You have a choice, Rex," Jake said. "Order your forces to withdraw from this planet immediately, or I will execute you right here." Rex laughed. "You think you have won, Morrison? I have 3,000 troops on this planet. You have maybe 200. Kill me and my men will slaughter every civilian they can find." Jake's expression did not change. "Your troops do not know. You have been captured. As far as they know, you are still in command. You are going to order them to return to their ships and leave this system. If you refuse, I will broadcast images of your corpse to every